Well, the Iowa caucuses aren't exactly comedy gold, but Conan O'Brien gave it a shot on his show last night.
Of course, everyone's excited. Today are the Republican Iowa caucuses, huh? Or as it's also known, Old White Guy Mardi Gras.
Well, Steve Deace, the so-called conservative blowtorch of Iowa radio, joining us again this morning. So, Steve, if the caucuses were like Mardi Gras, you were on the Gingrich float. He didn't get the most beads. What happened to your guy?
What happened is, and I know this is going to sound like spin, and maybe it is, but his people actually think, I talked to one of his key people in Iowa that thinks I might have saved him from 5th place. So, I mean, folks got to keep in mind, I had one radio program between the time I endorsed him and between the time we went to the caucuses. And my hope was that we could help him at least stay stabilized enough to go on to South Carolina and Florida, where he's got far better organization and is far more competitive, and where I think this nomination is going to ultimately be decided.
All right, Steve, well, here's what Newt had to say last night, and then I'll get your reaction.
And I want to take just a minute and congratulate a good friend of ours, somebody who we admire and whose family we admire, and that's Rick Santorum. He waged a great, positive campaign. And I admire the courage, the discipline, the way he focused, and I also admire how positive it was. I wish I could say that for all the candidates. There will be a great debate in the Republican Party before we are prepared to have a great debate with Barack Obama.
What's your reaction? And are you going to stick with Newt?
I am going to stick with Newt until someone comes up with bigger and better solutions. I'm going to stick with Newt. I do think that what's interesting is some of the best days the Republican Party's had in the last 25 years since Reagan left office were in the mid-1990s. You had Rick Santorum in the Senate, and you had Newt Gingrich in the Congress working together to have really the last time we moved this country ideologically to the right. So I know this, as long as Mitt Romney has a flooded field, he's likely to be the nominee. If Mitt Romney has to go one-on-one with either Rick Santorum or Newt Gingrich, he's going to lose this nomination. 4 years later, he got 66 more votes in Iowa than he got 4 years ago. And I think that tells you he is a static frontrunner. And now it's about who the challenger would and should be.
Steve, final question. You know, what kind of feedback did you get from your listeners last night? You were live through the night. And what are you expecting to hear from them today? You know, they're very dedicated to you, and they helped Huckabee win there in 08 when you endorsed him.
You know, I didn't really get nearly as much blowback for this as I thought. I know a lot of my listeners, even if they didn't vote for Newt, love his voice, love his intellect, want to see his voice be prominent in the race. And I think even a lot of my listeners, if they were Rick Santorum supporters, I think the idea of a Santorum-Gingrich or a Gingrich-Santorum ticket is something that would appeal to a lot of them.
Steve Deace, thanks again for joining me. I appreciate it. We'll talk more.